President Trump is responding as the stock market takes a hit after new tariffs from his administration. And Arkansas lawmakers set to take up a bill this week that could impact farming on the Buffalo River, but some worry it could put water quality at risk. We'll share what both sides are saying.
Covering news where you live. This is 5 News at Noon.
Well, thank you for joining us for your 5 News at Noon. I'm Morgan Wrigley with meteorologist Stephen Elmore. It was a little bit cooler of a morning than we've had, but after the weekend that we had, it didn't feel too bad.
Yeah, it was. We had that freeze warning out this morning. A few places dropped below freezing, especially across northwest Arkansas, so definitely chilly. This afternoon, though, not too bad. 50s, 60s, lots of sunshine. Overall this week, not going to be too bad either. We're talking about those daytime highs climbing a little bit every day, and really throughout the rest of this work week, even through the weekend. Lots of sunshine. We remain dry. Not a whole lot of major changes in the forecast. Pretty calm pattern we're looking at them over the next several days. You take a look all over the place, you'll struggle to find any cloud coverage. Lots of sunshine out there right now. That high pressure system's just off towards our west, so allowing a little bit extra sunshine for today. Yes, it was a bit cooler this morning. Tomorrow will be chilly as well, but overall, once you get that sunshine to come out, not too bad in the afternoon hours. Northwest Arkansas, the rest of the day today looks like this. Lots of sunshine. Daytime highs reaching up into those low 60s. Across the river valley, we're talking about lots of sunshine as well, with those daytime highs just a little bit warmer into those mid to upper 60s. Today it will be about 10 degrees warmer in the afternoon by the time we get to tomorrow. Your algae report looks like this. This is updated every Friday, so we try to show it over the weekend and on Mondays as well. Again, the latest report has that tree pollen very high right now. That's what's causing a lot of people those issues. With a dry, windy pattern coming up the rest of this week, I imagine by the time we get to this upcoming Friday's report, it's not going to look great for those who are sensitive to the allergies out there, the pollen out there as well. So we'll talk about that towards the end of the week. Until then, though, pretty calm out there. Lots of sunshine over the next several days, and that's much needed after all the rainfall that we picked up last week.
Thanks, Stephen. Well, new at noon, we're learning a 19-year-old woman is dead after a crash in Fort Smith last week. Arkansas State Police say Sydney Owens was riding her bicycle at the intersection of Towson Avenue and South O Street when she was hit and killed by a car that was driving through a green light. Owens was reportedly a Fort Smith resident. Stay with 5 News as we continue to follow this developing story. And right now in Benton County, Amber Waterman, who's already serving a life sentence for killing a pregnant woman, is back in court today. 5 News reporter Kayla Davis has been in the courtroom. She's live there now with more on what we're learning right now. Kayla.
Yeah, Morgan, we just finished interviewing with the prosecuting attorney on this case, Josh Robinson. We were inside court, just like you said, and Amber Waterman was there on Zoom for her omnibus hearing date scheduled for today. However, Judge Green did reschedule it for July 7th, and that's because the Arkansas Supreme Court is deciding whether or not double jeopardy is still in play for this case. And if you remember us telling you, that's because she's already serving a life sentence federally. So now they're deciding whether or not they can seek the death penalty here in Benton County. So the Arkansas Supreme Court is going to decide on, or they're hearing oral arguments on April 24th, and then they're going to make that decision, and then we'll hear back on whether or not they're going to get that omnibus hearing on July 7th. And that could even be moving up depending on how quickly the Supreme Court makes a decision on this case. So once again, the next time she will be here in court is on July 7th. That could be moving up. Judge Green even said today that they're going to be making that decision really quickly after the omnibus hearing. It could be even the next day as far as getting that second hearing for their motion. So that's all I have for you right now, and I'm going to send it back to you, Morgan.
All right, Kayla, thank you so much for that update. Well, circling back to the flooding that we saw this over the past week and over the past few days, Waldron schools saw some extensive damage from the recent storms. The district has canceled classes for today because of that flooding damage to the middle and elementary school buildings over the weekend.
The hail ended up being so big and so much of it so fast that it penetrated areas of the roof, which caused the water to get into the second layer. Right. And once it gets in there, it just kind of goes where it wants. Well, it just happened to go in several places.
School leaders say they will communicate with parents and students about the rest of the week and any makeup plans for this day. And staying in Waldron, the weekend storms also caused some damage to a police cruiser. Take a look at this photo. You can see multiple ball-like dents in the windshield there. And of course, the severe weather also left hail and water damage across parts of Arkansas. Meanwhile, President Trump has approved Governor Sanders' request for federal assistance after all that rain and storms this past week. That approval now frees up funds for debris removal and emergency protective measures. The governor says multiple rivers across the state had already been impacted by all the rain, and that even more rain will prolong major flooding and add more pressure to river levees. She adds that emergency personnel are working around the clock to manage the situation. Meanwhile, some Arkansas farmers are dealing with the aftermath of the flooding. One man says he went to check his operation north of Conway over the weekend.
It was a solid lake from one end to the other, but we'd moved equipment to higher ground and hadn't planted a crop out there yet, so we're still in the game.
He says he's now waiting for these floodwaters to die down, and then he plans to check the forecast to see if there will be a good time to plant before that mid-April sweet spot. Well, in national news, President Trump says foreign leaders are trying to make deals as his sweeping tariff plan takes effect. 10% across the board kicked in this weekend ahead of harsher reciprocal tariffs on around 90 countries scheduled for Wednesday. Natalie Brand has more details from the White House.
Stocks went on a bumpy ride after Monday's opening bell as markets continue to reel from President Trump's tariff strategy. The president on board Air Force One Sunday night said he's not backing down.
I don't want anything to go down, but sometimes you have to take medicine to fix something.
On social media, President Trump urged Americans to be patient, saying, "Don't be a panican," a new party based on, quote, weak and stupid people. But some Republican lawmakers are joining Democrats in sounding the alarm over an escalating trade war. GOP Congressman Don Bacon of Nebraska says he's introducing a House version of the bipartisan Senate bill to reassert congressional control over trade policy.
If we continue to see the stock market go a certain direction, or if we see inflation or unemployment shift in a bad way, I think then this bill becomes a very viable bill.
President Trump says he spoke with Japan's prime minister this morning ahead of reciprocal tariffs taking effect Wednesday. White House officials say more than 50 countries have called the president to try to negotiate.
They're dying to make a deal, but I said, we're not going to have deficits with your country. We're not going to do that because to me a deficit is a loss.
Today, the first foreign leader to talk tariffs with President Trump in person will be Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visiting the White House this afternoon. The U.S. ally is set to be hit with a 17% reciprocal tariff later this week. Natalie Brand, CBS News, the White House.
Well, a second child with measles has died in Texas, and this comes amid hundreds of reported cases in recent weeks. In February, an unvaccinated child died of measles in Lubbock. That was the first death from the disease in a decade. Then in early March, an adult in New Mexico became the second measles-related death. Now, the West Texas outbreak is believed to have spread to several states, with the latest CDC update saying there have been over 600 confirmed cases this year in at least 21 states. The developments over the weekend prompted U.S. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to visit West Texas.
And the problem with the measles vaccine is that it's a leaky vaccine. It doesn't provide sterilizing immunity, which means that for a large percentage of the people who get that vaccine, it will wane in old age.
There have also been reported cases of measles in Canada and in Mexico. Well, police are investigating a suspicious death in Van Buren. Sunday morning, police responded to the scene on South 40th Street, and they haven't released any more information, but say they are still working the case. We'll bring you any updates right here on 5 News. Well, lawmakers are set to discuss a bill to fund the proposed Franklin County Prison project again this afternoon. Lawmakers voted not to pass the appropriations bill 3 times last week. Today's meeting in the Senate chamber will take place in less than an hour at 1 o'clock. Meanwhile, the Chickamauga Nation says the site of the future prison is a sacred burial ground. The nation plans to hold a press conference today in Charleston to speak about their findings on the site. We'll be live streaming that conference on 5+, and we'll have the latest here on 5 News later this evening. Well, Governor Sanders has signed the Second Amendment Financial Privacy Act into law. That will take effect later this summer, and it will ban financial institutions like banks or credit card companies from tracking firearm or firearm-related purchases. It also bans the government from having any records of firearm ownership except for weapons reported stolen. This only applies to in-state purchases, and the Attorney General will be in charge of enforcing that law. And at the Arkansas Capitol, a bill to lift the ban on farming on the Buffalo River passed in the Senate is now set to go before the House this week. 5 News reporter Parker Abels explains why some people are against that bill moving forward.
Senate Bill 290 looks to eliminate an environmental permit moratorium that protects the quality of the Buffalo River watershed. Mark Lambert with the Arkansas Farm Bureau says the bill aims to protect farmers.
This is a right to farm. This does not strip away any moratorium, does not take away the Lake Maumelle moratorium, nor the Buffalo River moratorium.
But many people at the meeting disagree and think this bill will hurt the quality of the water.
My parents took me to the Buffalo River when I was 5 years old and said, "Rich, you'll be able to see every pebble at the bottom of the river." And they were right. And I was just up there last week, and they're still right. But it's because the river has been protected.
Love it very much, and we love it because of the river and the beauty and the natural environment and the cleanliness of the environment, and we would do anything to keep it that way.
Kip Kruger with the Arkansas chapter of Backcountry Hunter and Anglers agrees, saying ending the moratorium on the Buffalo River watershed would hurt thousands of Arkansans.
Moratoriums were put into place because they are extremely sensitive in special areas within the state. The Maumelle River watershed delivers water to over 450,000 Arkansans. And of course, the Buffalo National River is the crown jewel of the state. It's America's first national river.
And he doesn't think anything needs to change.
The bill makes it so that every 4 years, any moratorium in place has to be reviewed and approved again. Anything that makes it worthy of a moratorium is not going to change in 4 years. Arkansans still need clean drinking water, and the karst geology of the Buffalo is not going to change in 4 years.
However, the bill's sponsor, Senator Blake Johnson from Arkansas District 21, says the bill will protect agriculture in the state.
It gives us a better step in the rulemaking process to protect agricultural production in the state of Arkansas.
Covering news where you live, Parker Abels, 5 News.